Hello, geeks, freaks, and all those unique. It's EmceeFrodis, and I'm here to talk about what's going on in fandom. So, um, it was just announced that on the new Star Trek show that's coming up, Star Trek Prodigy, that Catherine Janeway, the captain of the USS Voyager herself, is going to be a part of the show. Um, the actress Kate Mulgrew is coming back to voice the character, and, people were just thrilled that we were getting yet another one of the classic captains coming back. And I can't believe I just said Janeway was a classic captain, because, of course, having grown up with the TNG era, it doesn't feel like it was all that long ago, but it really was. Anyways, the reason I thought I would talk about it is because there were a lot of people who seemed really upset by the idea of Janeway coming back. Specifically because Janeway was going to be ruined like Picard was ruined. And that made me think a lot about the Fandom Menace, as it's called. This is a concept both in the Star Trek and Star Wars fandom, where you have these fans who basically do nothing but complain. And I suppose this can be seen as a follow-up to my video about coping with fandom. But this is the video for the people who are coping very badly. And I think the Fandom Menace is a part of that. I did not write this. I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head. So you might think I'm full of shit, which, to be honest, even when I write things, I usually am. But I don't understand the section of fandom where they do nothing but complain about everything. I understand not liking a thing or two, but I feel like eventually you would give up on talking about it, or you would move on to something else, something where you do enjoy things. And yes, you can enjoy one part of a fandom and not another, but you just ignore that other part. I will give you an example. I've spoken about how much I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I watched all 7 seasons of Buffy, all 5 seasons of Angel while they were on TV. Huge thing for me. I even like the Buffy movie for what it is. But Boom Studios is doing a reboot comic where they've taken all the Buffy characters and they've updated them for the modern age. And I've looked at it and it's not something that I care for. And so you just don't hear me talking about it. I mean, honestly, I've never really cared for any of the Buffy comics, so I just don't talk about them. You don't need to like everything that is in a fandom. And not everything is going to be something that you're going to like. But the thing that really confuses me about the Fandom Menace, in particular with Star Trek, most of these people have been complaining about it since the 2009 movie. So you've been complaining about Star Trek for 11 years. That's a long time. That is a 5th grader. I don't understand how your hate can be a 5th grader and yet you're still in the fandom. Like, you can't hold on to hatred that long. You just gotta let it go. You can see what they're doing with Star Trek. And there was also just an article that came out that Alex Kurtzman has plans for Star Trek up until 2027. So that's another 7 years that Kurtzman is going to be in charge of the franchise. So if you don't care about what he's doing, you've got to take a step back. There's other places in fandom that you can hang out. You just don't hang out in like the major, the news areas. obviously your complaining isn't going to make them gear what's coming out towards you, because they've tried for 11 years to come out with stuff that you like, and you don't. So honestly, they've kind of written you off at this point. They think that you are somebody who's never going to be pleased. So why even bother trying? A similar sort of thing, I think, happened with the Star Wars fandom. People complained about the prequels. People complained about the sequels. And so then the filmmakers just did whatever they wanted. And the times when they did try to capitulate to various groups were the biggest mistakes, because they ended up not pleasing anybody. Because they, angered the people who had already enjoyed them. And they weren't far enough for the people who were complaining. I think that nostalgia can be a very powerful thing, and I think it can also be a very dangerous thing. People have problems with them revisiting the TOS era. That has been a huge thing with Discovery. They don't like that Discovery revisits the TOS era, but looks nothing like the TOS era. And the same thing happened with the Kelvinverse movies. And my question is, do you really want something that looks like it did in the 60s? Because I'm telling you, like, Gene Roddenberry didn't want it to look like it did in the 60s. He wanted it to look like it does now. He just didn't have the money to do it. I also know that we do need things to change, to everything, not the storytelling, the special effects. You can't have it be the way it was back in the 60s. It would be horrific. And I think that people have this very rosy view of what things were. I mean, even 30 years ago, I just finished watching all of The Next Generation. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of clunkers in there. I adore it as a whole. But when you look at the individual episodes, there's a lot that are not very good. So this is like me just really rambling, and I'm probably going to get comments on this. It's like, what the hell is she talking about? But, my main point is you have to find something to like in a fandom. And it shouldn't be, I like people. You know what? I need to sneeze. So I totally lost my train of thought because I had to sneeze. And I guess I just sneezed out my train of thought. I'm somebody who has complained about various aspects of my fandoms, but that wasn't the only thing I had in fandom. That was something that I moved on from. Like, I've not made it a secret that I disliked a lot of The Rise of Skywalker, but I just do my best to ignore it. I don't complain about it all of the time. Most of the time, if I bring it up, mostly it's a joke. But I just focus on the other stuff that I do like, which there is plenty. And I don't try to take things away from the people who did like it. And I find that there is this toxic area of most fandoms where it's all about just taking away from the people who are enjoying something. And as somebody who is particularly in the Star Wars and Star Trek fandom, I see this all the time. People who dislike what is going on with the franchises, and they want to punish anybody who dares to enjoy what's coming out. And I don't think it's a coincidence that most of the stuff that's being complained about has to do with female characters or female fans who are excited about something. Certainly, modern Star Trek is much more inclusive. And that's something that's very threatening to a lot of people. And a lot of the stuff I see has been suggesting that they should not go to these extents. When the news came out about the new Discovery characters being trans and non-binary, that you had all of these cis straight people basically saying, oh, well, Star Trek has done that all before, so you're not very special, like, doing it now. And then you had a ton of trans people, trans and NB people who were like, but now there's somebody who's going to be there, like, as a full-time cast member. Like, that's a big deal. Like, please don't take this away from me. And I think that them trying to claim the brownie points for characters in the past has nothing to do with those past characters. They're not trying to get attention onto them. It's about trying to take away the squee of these fans of the new shows. I think that so much of what's going on is about taking away squee. And please don't do that. There are people who enjoy things that you don't, and they're completely allowed to have that. And I say that as somebody who has gotten into many fandom dramas over my tenure in various fandoms. It's something that I try to try to not do anymore. I mean, I'd like to say that I'm perfect and above that. And this is partially a message to me. I know it's hypocritical of me to say that and then also say, but sometimes we can all do better. Every single person in fandom can do better, including me, including the people who agree with me on this. But I do think that if you're spending your time in fandom doing nothing but complaining, you're doing fandom wrong. That's the only time I will ever say you are doing fandom wrong. Because fandom is something that should be joyous. It should be something that takes you away from your everyday life. We all need that right now. We all need something to distract us from the horrible things that are happening in the world. But if what you're doing in fandom is just making somebody else's experience miserable, and I don't see how that can be a pleasurable experience for you, then that is the wrong way to do fandom. So when you're complaining about Catherine Janeway coming back because you think they're going to do her character wrong, even though you haven't seen a single frame of footage of her, they've just made the announcement that it's going to happen, you're doing fandom wrong. If you think automatically that whatever new is going to come out is going to be bad, of course you're going to think it's bad because you're going in with that preconceived notion. And if that is your take on things, then just hang up your hat and leave fandom. I mean, I'm not trying to chase you away, but I don't think that you're enjoying it anymore. I don't think that you are getting what you need to get from fandom. That's whenever I've quit a fandom, it's been because I'm not having fun anymore, because I spend most of my time complaining about it. And that's not healthy. It is just not a healthy way to do things. So for all of the members of the Fandom Menace who are putting out videos or podcasts or whatever that are just, hour-long bitch sessions, you need to stop. If you are so married to what happened 30 years ago or 60 years ago or whatever, go back and watch those. Just focus on that kind of stuff. You have literally hundreds of hours of footage that you can focus on. And the new stuff that comes out can be for new people who maybe don't have the same connection to the old stuff. And they don't need to. It is okay for people to not watch like the first things that came out because it's not of interest to them. With these with these juggernaut fandoms, you don't have to like every single bit of it. It's fine to cut it up into smaller pieces. It's always been fine. Maybe eventually you'll come around on things. Certainly, I did go through a period in the early 2000s where I didn't like the prequels. Guess what? I like the prequels now. I mean, I can certainly make fun of certain things. I'll never get over that sand line. But you can find things that later on, when things are less fresh, maybe you can realize that, oh, this is why people liked them. So just let people like what they're going to like. And just take a breath and realize that not everything has to be geared for you. And give things a chance. If you haven't seen something, then you really can't make a call as to whether or not it's going to be good or not. And when you have that veil of ignorance, always err on the side of optimism, because you don't want to go in thinking that something's going to suck. Because if that's the case, then you're never going to have any fun. And that's why we're all here. So that is my ramble for this episode. Please, if you agree with what I said, comment down below. If you have any other thoughts, I'd love to hear them too. Just be nice about it. Follow me on all of the social medias. They'll be over here. Subscribe to my videos. I will be coming out with some more stuff soon. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon or buy me a coffee. And you can also buy my t-shirts. This one is called The Problem with Porgs. Because since I'm talking about Star Trek and Star Wars, I wanted to have something that represented both. And let's face it, Poe Dameron is kind of Kirk-like, so I like that. All of the links to that kind of stuff will be in the description. So, until next time, may the Force be with you.